All right. Hey, welcome back to the Go for CEO channel. This is John the Bomb. Building others means business. And we've got a very special guest. The outcome of this is that you are going to learn a ton of stuff going on in the financial services world, something where trillions of dollars are moving hands from baby boomers to the millennials. Well, what happened to the Gen X guys? I'm a Gen X guy. What happened to those guys? So it's going to be a fun conversation, ladies and gentlemen. Go for CEO community. Stay tuned. We've got a third generation financial services expert here. When James took over FSC Wealth Advisors in 2021, he completely redefined its approach to financial planning by focusing on aligning money with meaning. Under his leadership, the firm saw assets under management grow by impressive 200%, which is a direct reflection of his innovative strategies and ability to grow strong relationships. So, James, welcome to the Go for CEO channel. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, John. Excited.
Awesome, awesome. Well, hey, look, we always like to start with kind of the ideation, the story, a little bit of the background. I know off camera we were sharing a little bit, and I told you, hey, keep that for the podcast. Let's share it with the audience. So, take it away. I mean, share with us. Obviously, third generation's pretty cool, pretty rare in America. So,
Yeah.
share with us a little bit of that story, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So in order to tell that story, I've got to go way back to the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, when my grandfather started the business under a different name. Uh, Mutual funds were just becoming available to public. None of them were getting help with where they should be investing, what funds they should be using through their 403(b)s. And so my grandfather saw this great opportunity. He was formerly a life insurance guy, started, selling mutual funds, and he was the consummate salesman. He'd show up, get you to invest your money, not talk to you again until, there was another opportunity to invest more money. But that was really where it started. So we started helping out public teachers with their retirement, building a little bit of a nest egg outside of their pension so that there was more flexibility when they got there. My uncle then took over the business in the late 90s. And he did not appreciate the old salesman approach. He wanted to be more consultative, really have a relationship with people. So he converted it from a mutual fund sales business to really a wealth management business where we were now managing portfolios on behalf of our clients. And then you fast forward to 2012, where I then got into the business. We were about 60, $70 million in total assets at that time. So pretty small by any measure, especially Wall Street. But my uncle had maintained the base that my grandfather built. Then I got involved and I said, hey, I appreciate that we're managing portfolios, but if I were a client, I would want a lot more answers than, hey, we'll see you next year and this is how your portfolio did last year. So I started to think about different ways to offer different investment strategies, things like tax planning, right? Insurance planning, all these different things. How do we incorporate that into one holistic approach? And so I've been blessed not only to have my family be great mentors, but I've also been introduced to other people in the industry across the nation who have, really created incredible processes around specific things. And my uncle basically paid for me to go around the country, spend time with these people, and gather all the information and then bring it back, right? So starting really in 2012, I met a fellow named Al Schofield who taught me how to analyze specific assets. And so from there, we became incredibly in depth in analyzing different, like if you're a professional and you work at a publicly traded company, you get stock, right? You get stock options, RSUs, all these kinds of things. How do you know if you want to invest in it? How do you know if it's got potential to go higher? Is it really a great risk just based on what's going on in the market? So things like that have become good for us. I met a couple folks in 2016, 17 who were really into bucket planning. They do all these really extravagant financial plans and then simplify it into three simple buckets, right? So Jason Smith and Dave Allison became incredible mentors of mine. And so that's kind of been the path that led us to all the innovation that you kind of mentioned a little bit there at the open. But in 2018, that allowed me to become a partner in the business, right? So based on how much I'd affected the process and what we were doing, I was given 10% equity ownership and really given control of the company, right? Because prior to that, we had some older advisors and they say, "Hey, James, appreciate your thoughts, but we've been doing this a long time, and so we're going to do it the way we do it." And I said, "Okay." But then finally, they started to come around to it, and then they saw the success I was having in growing a client base, and they said, "Okay, we're gonna do that. Let's all do that." And it really centered around that holistic approach. Um, so what that means is we believe in the five pillars, right? There's a financial plan, which is really where everything starts. But as soon as that plan is created, it's kind of outdated, right? So then there's the remaining pillars. So there's wealth management or asset management, whether it's investments or real estate, whatever that is, people need help managing those investments. There's tax planning, which is different from your CPA because the CPA looks at last year and says, "Hey, here's how we can kind of put lipstick on this pig." We're looking forward 5, 10, 20 years, and we're saying, how can we improve your lifetime outcome from a tax standpoint based on the decisions we're making now, based on the environment that we're in. Then there's legacy and estate planning, right? So if you're a business owner, you're going to transfer that business, you're going to sell it, whatever that you want that outcome to be. If you've got large assets, where do you want the money to go? Who's in charge and what are the rules, right? All that kind of stuff. And then there's obviously protection planning for the worst case scenario. What if, God forbid, something happened to me? Something I think about all the time. If something happens to me, what happens to my family? What happens to the people that work with me that I'm now responsible for? So all those five pillars wrapped up into one holistic process is really our goal.
I love it. And putting a system together that you were able to do, and it's interesting, right? Because two generations were in this business, and they were kind of just plodding along, maybe growing a little bit through the assets organically. Then there's this young buck, right, comes in and
Yeah.
revolutionized. But your uncle invested in you, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a clue, Go for CEO community. When you have that second, third generation, don't just put them in to start working. Especially in a professional service like this, you want to have that person kind of get into the industry, understand what's going on, learn from other people. And you talked about mentors in my book that's coming out in July. I talk a lot about mentors and how it affected my life as a mentee. Can you go a little bit deeper in that? Because it seems like those two or three names that you put out there, were you spending literal weeks at a time with them? Did you visit their office? Were you taking notes? Were they giving handouts to you? How was that experience for you?
Yeah. So the first person I mentioned, Al, and like you, these people have completely changed my life, including my family as well, right? Like super thankful and blessed for the opportunities that they were giving me. But with Al specifically, I think in a 3-year stretch, I spent about 6 months in total, half of which I was essentially staying at his house, right? He's that kind of person. If you're in his, sphere of influence, you're basically family. Um, I always think of him like an uncle. So not as much a business person, more of like an uncle that I didn't have. So that was incredible to spend all that time with him. Took me into the weeds, showed me everything, things that you don't really want to show people, right? He opened the chest up and let me see the whole thing. Dave and Jason, also really great people. They're two of my best friends now. But yeah, I think I met them officially in 2018. And in the first year, I think I spent about a month with them. And I've spent incredible amounts of time every year since with them. And they've just been, you know, I can call them at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday and say, "Hey, this is the problem I'm having. You got any advice?" And they'll answer and they'll help.
And that's interesting, right? I mean, at times you're going to come into situations where you'll stumble. You won't know what to do. How cool is it to have three people in your life that you could, go to? And obviously, you still had your uncle and maybe
Right.
grandfather if he's still around, and tag on to those people. What were some of the things that they specifically shared with you? Was it truly just client experience and how you were going to walk that client through? Was it maybe some of the marketing that you needed to improve on and to get those bigger dollars and increase that assets under management?
Yeah. So the marketing piece was a bootstrap totally from the ground up. I just was researching like crazy, trying a lot of different things simultaneously, figuring out what worked and putting more effort behind the things that did and eliminating the things that didn't. Um, with Al specifically, it was all about investments, right? Although he's one of the most incredible humans, our conversations mostly focused around investments and how do we analyze them and get the most out of everything that we're doing. Um, Jason he didn't create bucket planning, but he created the bucket plan. He wrote a book about it. Um, and so one of the things when I met Jason, I was struggling to get the other advisors to adopt a bucketing plan. And I didn't have the tools to demonstrate for them, this is how it works and this is why it works. I could tell them theoretically, yeah, you should bucket your assets this way and you'll have much greater outcomes and all of that. But when I met Jason, he said, well, we've built out all the tools already. We've got them. Why don't you use mine? Get your guys to understand it this way and then just then you'll be fine. And that changed everything. Having the visuals to go along with the story totally changed that entire process. And Dave specifically taught me about taxes, right? How do we look at taxes through a lens of forward looking versus rear view looking, right? So he created a process which I've been a part of iterating and changing and updating as we've gone. But back in 2019 or 20-ish, he created a process we call the tax management journey, right? So it's a 7-step process. I could take you through it, but essentially it's how do we, for every single client, evaluate where they are. We have to make all of these decisions, right? This is a 7-step process, but we make it systematized so that every client is getting the right advice specific to them, but with that tax frame around it.
You made me think of my old license days of tax now, tax later, tax never, right?
Right.
Type of situation, and those are cool things. And then unfortunately, there's no education in college, not to any depth. High school for darn sure. And our parents, unfortunately, if they didn't have a great firm like yourself, someone who cared, or if they didn't have the money, typically, wealth advisors don't talk to someone that has 50 grand, right?
Right.
Or 100 grand, which is significant to some people, but
Yeah.
not enough to engage a real wealth advisor that has the type of tools that you had and into your business. So, you mentioned part of your leadership was trying to transition into influencing. You were third generation. Obviously, some of the advisors that were on the firm and in the team were doing their own thing. There is a little bit of an independence from what I know of my days in that world. Um, let's talk through how you started to engage them, to influence them, to get to this bucket process and some of the challenges, right? Some of the things. I mean, you
Yeah.
are family. They probably knew you were the heir apparent, but what was that transition like to share with the audience?
Yeah. So I don't think in the beginning of my career, it was obvious that I was the heir apparent. I think the first couple of years, they were looking at me like, I don't know if this guy's going to make it.
Okay.
um, but, essentially it started to catch on a few years later. And one of the things I have an advisor, Jeff. He's an incredible advisor, great guy. He's been doing this now, I think almost 40 years. But in the early stages, I would sit down with him and say, okay, I looked at these 5 clients. Here's some of the opportunities we have based on what you're doing, what I think would make a lot of sense. And by the way, we can help save them a lot of taxes. And so they're going to be ecstatic about that. It's going to be good for you. And I didn't ask for anything, right? I just said, hey, this is what I don't want to be compensated or anything. This is what I think you should do. And we talked through it. And then he interestingly, he said, hey, would you mind sitting in the meeting and kind of going through it with them? Absolutely. Be happy to do it. We did that with one client, and it actually turned out it was a $770,000 client for him. And this guy had $2.5 million elsewhere. But when we showed him this entire process, which we didn't know about the other assets, right? We showed him the holistic approach and how we thought we'd be able to share him save him a lot of taxes, all that stuff. He said, yeah, let's move all the money over and let's do that plan. And then that was the beginning of really getting the ball rolling with some of the other guys.
Wow. So really implementing something that, can clearly show not only the advisor that was on your team, but the actual client. And then you found discoverable assets afterwards. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool stuff. So
Yeah.
keep on telling us. I mean, were there any times where, they were just fighting back? They weren't willing to, really change, or was that your approach is like, hey, internally educate, educate, educate. Here's what I brought here. My mentor said this, what was the continual approach until they all started to buy in?
Yeah. So there's something called the Colby A index, which measures how we all approach things from a cognitive standpoint. And there's a factor in there that's called quick start. And it's on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm a 7, which means I hear a new idea, I'm implementing it tomorrow. But like my uncle, Jeff, these other guys were very low on that quick start. So like my uncle was a 2 specifically, and I knew he's a high fact finder, low quick start. So he wants all the information. It's probably never going to change anyway. So I said, I'm going to blitzkrieg these guys with as much information as I can to overwhelm them and then get them to say, okay, let's do that. And I remember coming back from a meeting. I partnered with a couple CPAs, and I came back from one of the meetings with the CPA, and the client said to me as I was leaving, I wish I met you 10 years ago, because I see how much I've built up this taxable, basically tax time bomb, right? And now we're unwinding it, but I could have avoided a lot of this stuff prior. And I just said something in passing, knowing that that would, you know, pique their interest. And I just was walking by my uncle. I said, yeah, I couldn't believe it. He said he wished he met me 10 years ago. Like it was such a great meeting. And well, tell me, what'd you guys go through? And so I started showing him a little bit of the decision-making process and the analysis. And he said, oh, well, that's interesting. I got a client just, very similar to that one. You think, oh yeah, let's talk about it. And then, 2 days later, we've got a whole other plan for that. And then, they start to see it happen. They see the clients feel like, wow, I've never seen this or heard this before, and this is incredible. And everybody hates taxes, right? So that's an easy target. And then it really started to catch on. I did have one advisor who still pushes back to this day, even though he's seen the incredible success and growth. He says, I don't believe bucket plans create growth. And I say, okay, that's all right. You just keep on doing you.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to change everyone, but he's still valuable to the firm, and
Yeah.
obviously brings in his allotment of people and assets, right? So awesome, awesome. Well, were there any things that you acquired either through the mentorship or mentee relationship that talked about some systems? Obviously, throughout the years from the 80s and 70s to now, just different things. There's AI coming up pretty fast. Not sure if that's affected your firm at all at the moment, but are there any systems or softwares that you've been able to either internally develop to create some SaaS within the company, or have purchased that have created some efficiencies within your firm?
Yeah. So, good question. Everything we do is process driven, right? It may not be in the beginning, but once we figure out this is how we want to do it, we then go through the process of creating a step-by-step checklist for everything. My meetings have agendas that are typically the same. We can customize them for every client, but the vast majority of it is the same. That's the first, what we call it, the discovery meeting. Right? The first meeting, the detail meeting, the delivery meeting, the follow-up meeting, the relationship meetings, like that's all systematized. You follow the process. And even me, who helped create a lot of that process, I follow the checklist because even I'll forget things, right? There's a formula to how we send a follow-up email after our meeting. We call it a fact finder. These are all the things we talked about. Definitely let us know if we missed anything or if we misinterpreted anything. No matter what it is, it's all process and system driven. We iterate constantly. We're always going back and looking at them. And I talked about the bucket planning, right? I'm a part of the bucket planning committee at Jason's group. So now I go in every quarter and we say, hey, here's what's working, here's what's not working. Let's tweak the process. Let's update the process. And so everything has to be system driven. And you mentioned technology. We use so much technology, and we've got so many automations so that things don't get left behind. I think, what is it, Zapier, right? That's one of those softwares. I don't do that part of it. I hired somebody to do that, but she basically builds out automation so that we get a new lead, we get a phone call, we haven't seen somebody in 3 months, 6 months, whatever that number is. we have a process to get it back in front of us so that we don't have to think about it, because whatever you have to think about usually gets forgotten about, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, systems, right? Save yourself, uh, what is it? Save yourself time, energy, and money, right?
Yeah.
So, give me one. Well, I'll tell you, yeah, definitely systems, help you grow much, much faster, and show you, right, that the efficiencies within that, even with your clients, to have those softwares or internally, keep you really up to date and showing you where the metrics are and stuff. So, in that same vein, marketing is a big deal. And I know that your industry is highly regulated. I always talk to advisors in my day-to-day job of commercial banking and say, like, hey, how come you can't be on LinkedIn with me to do this webinar or this and that? And, they're a little, I think there's a little bit probably hesitance because of that. But I would say that the neat thing is, how do you market? Is it purely word of mouth at this time? Obviously, third generation. Have you been using lead magnets online? Are you pushing them all to your website and having them fill out forms? How are you kind of preemptively, I guess, filtering some of the people that you do and don't want to work with? Or do you accept everybody where they're at and start the process from there?
Yeah. So I think marketing is always evolving. When I really started marketing back in 2017, 18 timeframe, I was big on the whole Gary V approach, just give it all away, right? And because the truth is, you can give away all the information, people aren't going to go execute it and probably don't have the real understanding of how to execute it without you anyway. Uh, and
Yeah.
if, and truthfully, if you're a do-it-yourselfer, that's fine. Hopefully, I helped you in some way, and you're now better off because of it. But so for us, we started with just a blog. And I said, okay, let me just start putting my ideas out there, see if we get any traction. And that actually went well. And then we hired somebody to help us market it. So we created a couple of lead magnets, and we were using the blog to get people interested in lead magnet, then get them to sign up for the email list. Um, it didn't go so well, quite honestly. So we were spending a lot of money. We weren't getting any results. And I said, hey, let me try this whole social media thing, right? Let me try to put some money behind it. I've got clients that work in the tech space. They're in, media, in tech. Let me see what they have to say. They helped me out a lot. And we were actually getting, I was spending, I think, $5 a month and getting like 85 clicks and downloads on it. It was incredible, right? And then 2020 happened and everybody kind of went virtual, and it kind of changed everything. But yeah, so we do the blog. I still do the blog. I write a blog every single week, and it's truly about giving away the information. There are lead magnets, so I have three really core niches. There's the high net worth families that really just need tax planning and asset planning and all of that kind of stuff. There's the small business owners who are looking to sell within the next 5 years, who, I think we were talking off camera about, these folks have no idea what they should be doing. How do they make their business more valuable? And I think there's 75 million small business owners getting ready to retire in the next 10 years. And the sad story is most of them won't realize any value for their business, even though they've worked 30, 40 years to create it. And so we want to help those people if we can. And so like we have like a small business checklist, a scorecard. Are you ready to sell? Right? These kinds of things. So we write a whole article about it. Then we give you something to actually go back and figure out where you are on that scale. And then there's always executives. They have the super complex packages. How do we help them? What do we do? We have ebooks for them about taking your stock options and doing it in a holistic manner. How do we marry those two concepts, and really build, so the idea there is get the information out. And I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I've not done a LinkedIn live, but that's essentially where I am most of the time. I don't do the other platforms. I just personally, I don't see the value for business. That's just me. But yeah, so I'm out there all the time. As long as you don't say anything crazy, I think you're okay. Keep it general. But yeah, so we've gone from writing blogs, lead magnets, we do webinars based around tax planning. And again, it's all just free information. You don't have to sign up for it. You don't have to pay for it. And it's just giving you the things that you should be thinking about. By the way, if you like what we have to say? Sure, we're here to help. We do have minimums, obviously, because it is a business and we have to be profitable. But so those are our three niches. But for all the other people, I've spent years helping the next generation of families, right? Helping young people who called in and just needed a push in the right direction to get started. Maybe they didn't need a full-time wealth advisor, but they needed to know where do they start. And so that was really the genesis of what we call her wealth journey. So I'm a girl dad. I've got three daughters, and I look at the world, I sit across from women who are either divorced, widows, or were just never included in the conversation and never had the confidence to be a part of that conversation. And I say, well, I don't want that to be the case for my daughters, right? So how do I change that? And I've had a couple daughters of clients where we've built specific things individually for them. And we kind of looked at it and we were saying, well, we've got a semblance of a program here. We've got some tools that they can use, things that they can take away. How do we turn this into something real? And so last year we started that Her Wealth Journey. It's always about what do they want to know? What questions do they have? And we try to use their own words to help them understand. But we're targeting 16 to 28-year-old women who are either just entering the workforce, just getting to that point where they really, want to know what's going on. But the goal is to start them out on the right foot. And this way they can be successful throughout their life with those foundational concepts.
That's an interesting demographic. They're saying that women are definitely almost two to three, or two-thirds are going more to college and getting education and just being more well prepared. They're diving into the great information that you're sharing. So yeah, as a girl dad of three myself, certainly exciting to hear that because from 16 to 28, it's those are impactful lives or times, right? They're ending high school, getting into possibly college or starting their own business.
Yeah.
But in my commercial days, I see a bunch of women that have great businesses, but like you said, maybe not on their personal financial side, looking and planning and strategizing the right way because they haven't been given that information or they're seeking it out and don't know where to get it. So I love that stuff. So, in the Go for CO community, we talk a lot about, leadership, assessing where you're at, aligning yourself with the right people. You took, those first few years of this business and put yourself in front of some great mentors. Obviously, your uncle was able to kind of facilitate that and help you. You came into the business, you had a strategy. It sounded like you knew some new concepts, some things that other people were doing with bigger AUM platforms and showing that to your team. Now you stand here, it's 2025. What are some of the things that I guess for the next 3, 5, 10 years that you're envisioning that the firm can become and go to?
Yeah. So 3 to 5 years. I mean, I've got big goals and big dreams, right? I want to be at least double what we are now 5 years from now. So we're approximately 300 million in assets. I want to be 600, maybe 750. But I want to have an army of young planners who understand the modern way to build financial plans and help clients in a more consultative way as opposed to the old, salesman approach. And I have clients all over the country, but I would like to be a national firm, right? I want to help people all over the country. And it can't be just me, right? I don't know if you read the Dan Sullivan book, 10x is easier than 2x. By myself, I can run harder and faster than everyone and probably get to 2x. But if I build out a team of advisors, I can get to 10x, right? And we can help more people. And really, the massive aspirational goal is to positively affect 1 billion people through money. So,
Yeah, no, it's
oh,
and look, there's Uncle G's been making 10x famous for about 10 years. So,
yeah,
it's a force multiplier. I mean, if you're thinking that way, where you set that goal, worst case scenario, 10x is really 100, right? If you think about it, and then you move towards that, and all of a sudden, maybe you didn't hit 750, but you hit 675, right? And you were really close to that, or
right.
you went for the billion but you actually landed at 750, right? So those are all great ways and a lot of great books. Now that you mentioned a book, tell us, your top 3 to 5 books that you've really enjoyed in your life that have made an impact. I'll
Oof,
put you on
okay.
the spot there.
Yeah. Number one book I think is Extreme Ownership.
Okay.
Jocko Willink
Jocko.
and
Yeah.
Leif Babin. That book about how Navy SEALs approach kind of everything, I think it filters throughout life. I don't think there's enough accountability in our world. And I'm the first person to say when there's a mistake, it was on me. I sat with a client last year, longtime client, and my assistant made a mistake and messed up this whole thing, which didn't hurt them, but it just was an annoyance. And they said, "What happened? Whose fault was it?" And I said, "Well, listen, it's my company. Ultimately, it's my fault, right?" So that's how I approach life. That's how I approach it with my family, with my business, with my friends. Always extreme ownership. There's been a lot of other books. There was a book called Switch that I read probably 10 or 15 years ago, How to Change When Change is Hard. And it's all about, you know, I can come in and say, this is the way to do things, and you're not doing any of this. Or I can look at you and say, well, here's the things you're doing well. If we maybe add this thing or add that thing, I can get you to get on board with that change and move in the right direction. And so I think that's been extremely impactful. And I read like 30 books a year, so it's hard. I did read
It,
also Jack Welch, his book Winning. I read that years ago. And not
that's
that I
good.
think Jack Welch was like the greatest ever, but I think his approach to developing leadership and finding leaders early and then putting all the assets and resources behind them, I think that's incredible. And it's something I do now. Like this week, just yesterday, I was at a conference and I look for the young advisors in the room, and I don't ask for anything. I just ask, how can I help you? What do you need? What are you struggling with? Where are you stuck? Because chances are I was there in the past.
Yeah. No, and I love Jack Welch in the sense that he would get rid of his bottom 10%.
Yes,
And as
he
a
was kind
business
of
owner,
ruthless.
yeah, no, I mean, but if you have a company of five, 25, 50, 100, you start to understand like the mindset of that, right? I mean, either they're going to come up to the level that you need them to, or you put in those couple years where the bottom 10% are getting let go because of real reasons, right? Obviously not just for the heck of it, but
Right.
I know he had a little bit of a different mindset on that. So, well, awesome stuff. So, one of the ways that we end our interviews is with CEO. So part of Go for CEO is client experience is the C, E is for engagement, and O is for operational excellence. And we've kind of touched on all those, but if you take a 60-second, value proposition from your firm to the world here, what makes the difference in client experience? And then we'll go to the rest.
Yeah, I think our clients know. One thing somebody said to me was, I hired somebody who's still with me, but she didn't want to be an advisor. I hired her to be an advisor. She didn't want to be an advisor because she said, when people walk in the office to see me, they hug me, they kiss me, they act like I'm their son, right? Like this, I'm a part of their family. And that's how we want the culture to be, right? We are a family. And I think that experience that clients have um, is super important to that. And, we just had the tariff conversation happen, a couple months ago. And I think most advisors may have been hiding under their desk. I'm calling my clients. I'm saying, hey, can you come in tomorrow? Let's talk next week. When are you free? Because I just want to talk to you about what's going on. We know what's happening. Here's what we're doing. You don't have to worry, right? And I think that's totally, totally incredible for the client experience.
I love it. Yeah, no, it's something that, ties them in. And what you said was so impactful there for any business owner, CEO, founder, entrepreneur, and entrepreneurs. Be proactive in bad times. Do not hide. Go out and touch your clients. Be in there. Go into the trenches. The best teammate is the one in the foxhole with you,
Yep.
willing to kind of lock arms with you, not the one that's like, hey, where'd that person go? So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
that's exciting to hear that client journey and experience. So engagement, you've talked about a little bit. You were willing to help the kind of the old guard learn some bucket systems and things that you were learning. You were willing to suggest some things, but what are some other ways with the team that you engage, or even with your clients? Do you guys hold like annual parties at the end of the year? Do you do, summer break parties? What are some ways that you engage in that sense?
Yeah, so we do our team event every year. We do it once a year, but I do quarterly meetings with each employee. So we've got 5 full-time support staff, we've got 4 full-time advisors, and always I want to know from the horse's mouth, what can I do to help you? What's going on? And it's one of those conversations where nobody has to worry. They're not going to be in trouble. They can say anything that they need to say, even if it's, "Hey, James, I think you're a terrible boss." Like whatever it is, which I never want to be the boss, right? Like quote unquote. But yeah, that's every quarter I sit with everybody, and it happens more often than that, just because in passing I'll say, "Hey, what's going on? How's everything going? You need help? What can I do?" Even though I'm not in the weekly meetings like with the support staff.
No, I love it. So yeah, I mean, look, letting them, especially quarterly, there's a book, I forgot what the exact title is, but it's a 12-week year, I believe it's called. And, if we would chunk the year, which seems, like a big chunk into 12 weeks, it seems like we can kind of manage those scenarios in our life. And it's been a really impactful book that a lot of people have enjoyed. So,
Yeah,
um,
it's
what's it?
interesting. So I got that idea from the EOS book by
Oh,
Gene
okay.
Wickman,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
he said, "Hey, 15 minutes every quarter usually turn into like 2 hour
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
because that's how life is." But yeah, it's the heartbeat of the business is not a year, it's not 5 years, it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, and then you reset after that.
Undoubtedly, undoubtedly. So, all right, the last one is operations. I know you talked about Zapier and some of the other things. Is there anything else that you've really kind of maybe recently invested some money into? Are you guys looking at generative AI and ways that it can help you within, or are you hopefully not worried about it, right? So, but what are some ways that you're using technology?
Yeah, no, so openly and honestly, I am not worried about AI. I think in my world, those who embrace it and learn how to work with it to improve outcomes will be the ones still here in 20 years. Um, but we've spent a ton of money on our CRM, right? Our relationship manager, to make sure that nobody gets forgotten about, to make sure that everything we're supposed to be doing actually gets done, and take that human error element out of it as much as we can. So that's kind of where we're spending our money operationally outside of people, right? I think people make the business, obviously, but from a technological standpoint, trying to make that CRM as perfect as it can be.
I love it. Love it. And so, let's give the people how to get a hold of you. There'll be some show notes in there, right? Sharing the firm and everything about you. We're gonna have some shorts built out of this long format Go for CEO community as you've been used to on LinkedIn, on X, on Facebook, on YouTube Shorts. We're also on Amazon, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, on the audio, visual sides. So tell people how to get a hold of you and what's the best way to connect with your firm.
Yeah. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll get the most up-to-date information. Connect with me. I love connecting with people. DM me, but you can go right to our website, www.fscwealthadvisors.com. You can sign up for our blog there. You can schedule a call there, whatever you need to do. Or you can always just email us, fscinfo@fscwealthadvisors.com. That's kind of a mouthful, but that's 3 real easy ways to get in touch with me specifically. And I answer all of my own stuff, so you don't have to worry about talking to my assistant or anything like that.
No chatbot or anything?
No, maybe when AI gets a little bit better, we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome, awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on the Go for CEO channel. We look forward to having you on again in the future and sharing, some of the progress over the next 18, 24, 36 months. This is a journey that we're having. Ladies and gentlemen, subscribe to the channel. I always forget to do it at the beginning, but if you're not a part of the Go for CEO community, subscribe, follow James, and go to his LinkedIn, engage with the newsletters and the blogs and the things that he's willing to share with you. So a lot of great information out there. One thing that I would say to you is you attach to a guy like this and go deep with him, right? Don't attach yourself to 20 guys and then get confused and not know what to do and have no action. Take action after you've gotten some information and implement. So thanks so much. Appreciate it, James, for coming on the Go for CEO channel.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John.